We'll now go through the setup for beginning a game of Arkham Horror. The first step is essentially to fold out your board, prepare your play area. As I mentioned, you would need quite a bit of table space. So find a table where you can obviously fit the board, but also around it you would be able to put your different cards and investigator cards. The second step is to place the clue tokens. On the locations on the boards, there are certain locations with a red diamond and there are certain locations with a green diamond. Green is good, they're stable locations, and red is unstable locations where the portals to the other world will likely pop up in these locations. So at the beginning of the game, we would have to place one clue token at each location with the red diamond. So Historical Society would get one, the Woods would get one, the Silverlight Lodge, the Witch House, the Black Cave, Graveyard, and on top, also the Hips Roadhouse and Independence Square, and then a bunch of other ones on the left as well. So look for the red diamonds and place a clue token on these locations. The third step is to choose a first player. In this playthrough, we have 3 players. So what we're actually going to do is just roll a die and see if we get a 1, 2, 3 to see which player would go first. So let me go ahead and do that. So we're looking for 1, 2, or 3. Alright, so player 2 will go first. The fourth step is to determine the investigators of your game. So there are a couple ways to do this. The easiest way is just to shuffle your investigator deck, and then your players will randomly each pick one. I've already pre-drawn for this playthrough 3 characters. The first one being Gloria Goldberg. We also have Michael McGlenn, who's the gangster. And finally, we have Daryl Simmons, who is the photographer. In selecting the Ancient One, one would typically just shuffle the Ancient One cards and then randomly draw one. So for the purpose of this video, this playthrough, we're actually going to play this monster, Ancient One here, whose name I will not try to pronounce. Reason being, it has a relatively short doom track and it's not too overwhelming for players beginning with the game. Alright, so the couple sections on this card, the first one being the most important one, I think, the doom track. This is essentially the countdown to when this Ancient One awakes. Every time we draw one of these green Mythos cards in the game, we would have to add 1 token to the doom track, like so. So once you add the token to the 11th point here, this Ancient One would awaken and you would have to battle it, which is not what you want because they're typically pretty tough. So the objective of the game, really, for me anyhow, is to win this game before the Ancient One awakens. While this Ancient One is inactive, it does have effects on how the game plays out, and you can see it in the left section here. So what it says here for this particular one is worshippers. So this monster has worshippers, and they have cultists. So the cultists, who are the worshippers of this Ancient One, is a type of monster in a monster bag. And so they would have an endless ability, meaning when they're defeated, they don't go back. You cannot take them as monster trophies. They actually go back into the monster bag, monster cup. The other condition for this Ancient One is that at the start of the game, we'll have to place the 5 mask monsters to the cup. And then there are some conditions on start of battle and how the Ancient One attacks, which we won't get to just now. So we'll have to put in the 5 mass monsters, and it would be in the monster bag already because I never took them out. So there will be certain monsters in this bag with the mask attribute. So basically you would just look to the back of these monster cards and it would have a bold label here that would say mask. So let me see if there's one here I could show you. Don't see anything just right now. Oh, here we go. Okay. So this particular one, the Black Man, is one of the mask monsters in the bag. It has a mask label with an endless attribute, and it has some special combat conditions as well with a horror check. So we'll grab these and mask monsters and include them in our monster bag for this ancient one. If you're playing something else, another ancient one, you would have to take them back out of the bag. The next step in the setup is to give the fixed possessions to the various players. Typically starting with the first player that we've selected or rolled, and this is Michael McGlenn. So we'll place the first player token on Michael McGlenn to remind us that we rolled him as the first player. The first player token will move clockwise after each turn, so it'll just come down to Daryl Simmons next. So Michael McGlenn will now receive his fixed possessions. So in this case, it is $8 and 2 common items, them being dynamite and Tommy gun. So we gave him the money that he requires. We've also drawn the Tommy gun and dynamite from the common items deck. The Tommy gun gives Michael McGlenn +6 to combat checks, and is a physical weapon. The dynamite gives him +8 to combat checks, and you would have to discard after use. Daryl starts with 4 clue tokens, $4, 1 clue token, and a special card that is the retainer. So first of all, he would get $4, he would get the 1 clue token, and then he would get this neat card called a retainer. And basically the retainer, in each turn when you have during the upkeep phase, you would gain $2, and then you will have to roll a die and see if you keep this retainer. So Daryl is actually a huge money generator for the game with the retainer card. The fixed possessions of Gloria is $7 and 2 clue tokens, and that's exactly what I've put in front of her. The next step in the setup is to shuffle your investigator cards. These are the smaller cards in the game. So we'll go ahead and shuffle each of these decks. I wouldn't bother shuffling the ally cards because they're not drawn at random, so I wouldn't do that. Okay, so we've shuffled the skills deck as well. After shuffling, it's time to give our investigators their random possessions. For random possessions, we'll start with our first player, Michael McGlenn, the gangster. His random possessions is 1 unique item and 1 skill. 1 unique item and 1 skill. Michael McGlenn's unique item is Necronomicon. On the movement phase, exhaust and spend 2 movement points to make a lore -2 check. If you pass, draw 1 spell and lose sanity. If you fail, nothing happens. His skill is luck, +1 luck. When you spend a clue token to add to any luck check, add 1 extra bonus die. I just want to make a clarification here that these two components are individual of each other, so you will already get the +1 luck for your character. But in the event that you spend a clue token, you will also get 1 extra bonus die for your luck check. So these are two different things. Our second player, Daryl Simmons, has the following random possessions. He has 1 common item and 2 unique items and a skill. Daryl Simmons, 1 common item, 2 unique items, and 1 skill. Daryl's 1 common item is a rifle. This is a physical weapon that gives Daryl +5 to combat checks. That's good for combat. His unique item is, the first one is Nameless Cults. On movement phase, exhaust and spend 1 movement to make a lower -1 check. If you pass, draw 1 spell, lose 1 sanity, and discard. Nameless Cults. If you fail, nothing happens. Finally, his second unique item is the Enchanted Knife. This is a magical weapon that gives him +3 to combat checks. And last but not least, his skill is +1 sneak. And also when he spends a clue token for a sneak check, he would get an extra bonus die. So these are the 4 items for Daryl. Last but not least, Gloria Goldberg. Her 2 random possessions are 2 common items, 2 spells, and 1 skill. 2 common items, 2 spells, and 1 skill. Her common items are, first one, the Old Journal. Upon movement, exhaust and spend 1 movement point to make a lower -1 check. If you've passed, gain 3 tokens, clue tokens, and discard Old Journal. If you fail, nothing happens. Okay, so that's a good card for getting clue tokens. Her second weapon, common item, is a Tommy gun, and it +6 to combat checks. It's a physical weapon. Her spells are, first one being Wither, and it also gives her some more combat checks, +3 to combat checks. Her second spell is Shriveling, which gives her +6 combat checks until the end of this combat. But it does have a sanity cost of 1, whereas this has a sanity cost of 0. Finally, her skill is Stealth. Any phase, exhaust to re-roll an evade check. Okay, so Gloria is great on combat. Lots of spells for combat. She'll get some clue tokens, and she's good on evades.